Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Nick Young from Seller Tradecraft, and today in this lesson, we will be reviewing basic business fundamentals. In this short video, I'll be going over some basic things that I'd like for you guys to understand prior to setting up your Amazon account. These things are some important considerations when setting up your business for scale. Now, if you're not based in the US, some of this information might not apply, but there are some things that will apply. So I definitely highly recommend that you continue on. First off, structuring your business. This is really important, especially if you have multiple partners due to how debt and income are recognized by the IRS here in the US. Before we continue, I do want to provide a disclaimer. I am not personally a tax attorney, so I definitely recommend that you speak with an attorney or a knowledgeable friend or business person before moving to the final decision. That being said, here are some of my thoughts on the matter. If you're like me and you have a partner or partners, I highly recommend that you decide on the structure and the operating agreement before proceeding, as it's best to make these things clear up front for the life of the business. An operating agreement is there to protect you in case you and your partner have disagreements, and it's basically a structure to decide how you guys will go through or how you guys would make decisions around disagreements and so forth. So definitely have that set up if you're going to a partnership. It's good to have it set up regardless whether you have a partnership or not, but especially important if you do have a partnership. Now, going on to legal structures and legal entities, really each structure depends and differs based off of two things: liability and tax implications. There are a few different business structures, and the ones that I've listed here are sole proprietorship, a partnership, or a corporation. Now, if you're working alone, a sole proprietorship could certainly work, but just keep in mind that you are legally liable for everything, and that should a legal claim be filed against you, all of your assets within your quote-unquote business and your personal life are at risk because it's a sole proprietorship. You are the business. Corporations are more complicated, but they avoid that route of being legally liable. Corporations are seen as a legal sole entity, and LLCs also have that ability of being seen as a sole entity. Now, corporations are relatively complicated, and I generally avoid that route to keep my taxes simple. So personally, we've opted, me and Fernando, to structure our business as an LLC, otherwise known as a limited liability company, within our home state of California. LLCs provide business owners with liability protection, as I mentioned before, and also offer the benefit of recognizing your income from your business as being passed through onto your personal tax returns. This makes tax a lot easier, and it's also very flexible in terms of how it's structured, because if you do want to be taxed as a corporation, which has its own pros and cons, which I highly recommend that you guys look into, the LLC gives you that flexibility to be taxed like that. It's called an LLC S Corp. And so you can actually make a filing and file to have that done for you. So it gives you that flexibility, and also an LLC gives you a legal structure to scale your business. So whether you're small or you're large, I would generally recommend going this route. But again, I think ultimately that decision rests on you and how you anticipate the business to grow. In terms of how you set up the legal entity, you can easily set one up through LegalZoom for less than $300, depending on what state you're located in. Next, choosing a bank. This is something that you'll definitely want to think about. You probably currently have a bank that you've worked with for a long time, so I'm guessing you've either opened a brand new account or you've been issuing checks from your personal. That's certainly fine in some cases, but I would definitely encourage you to think more broadly about the future of your business. In my experience, we've had to change banks due to the simple fact that the wire transfer fees added up to be way too much. Larger banks like Wells Fargo and Chase often charge up the ass in fees. And for us, with over 150 SKUs, we send anywhere from 30 to 50 wires per month at the very least, which translates to nearly $1,000 to $2,000 in fees at $35 per transfer, which is, a relatively cheap amount. The average price that we've seen when we've shopped around is anywhere between $35 to $45 at most major banks. So definitely, when you go into the bank, ask them what those transfer fees are. I recommend shopping with multiple banks also to learn more about something which is called the Treasury Management System. So this is basically their online wire transfer system, and you can figure out what the price is through that. I've used Comerica successfully, but your experience may vary per branch. So make sure that when you're setting up your business account, that you would like to set up online wires through this treasury management system, so you won't have to physically go to the bank to send a wire. A final thing to consider when choosing a bank is also your relationship in terms of loans. Now, this is super crucial. Amazon or any kind of online retail or e-commerce is a super cash intensive business. And that means that come Q4, when you need to buy extra inventory for that season, you might be cash strapped, and having a credit loan or having a loan of any sort would be super helpful in those situations. So I definitely highly recommend considering that when choosing a bank. Having a long-term relationship between 2 to 3 years of history is going to be really crucial. You won't be able to get a loan up front, but within 2 to 3 years, they'll be able to view your deposits and transfers and see, what you're getting into your bank on a regular basis to be able to verify whether or not you have the cash flow to repay your loan. So make sure that when you choose a bank, you're choosing one that you can go be with for the long term, because it opens up a lot of opportunities like loans, credit lines, and those kinds of things. The next thing I want to touch on is trademarking your brand. So by this point, you might have a brand name in mind. One thing you want to consider is, is that brand name unique, and is that something that you can trademark? Here's a quick tip. You can see here on the right, to register a trademark, you can go to the US Patent Office, the trademark website, but you also want to make sure that someone else hasn't already registered the trademark. Otherwise, you might be out of luck. The reason why having a trademark is really important is because you can set up brand registry 2.0. Counterfeiting is becoming an increasingly big, major issue on Amazon, and Amazon historically hasn't done a really good job enforcing intellectual property until recently. And so they have something called Brand Registry 2.0. If you can only get registered for this, and available for a whole suite of new features that come with Brand Registry 2.0, like enhanced brand content, being able to report your brand, only if you have a trademark. So I highly recommend, when you're choosing a brand, when you're selecting a brand name, consider the importance of whether or not you can trademark it, and make sure that no one else has done it before you. In the US, it typically takes a long time to get trademarked. So it gets around the 8-month mark. In Mexico, we found, and we've heard, that it's a lot faster. You can get a trademark within 2 months, and it's also applicable because of NAFTA across the US. And so if you want to get it done faster, try Mexico. And otherwise you can also go the normal route. So I touched a little bit on Brand Registry 2.0. I figured it might be good for us to dive in a little deeper what those benefits are. If you have a hijacker, and for those of you who don't know, a hijacker is someone who hops on your listing and claims to sell the exact same product. It might be the same product, but it doesn't have your branding. So that in of itself is counterfeit. Amazon hasn't historically done a good job of enforcing this, and so Brand Registry 2.0 gives you the ability to report counterfeiters through a report a violation page. This is amazing because before, Amazon didn't really verify these, but now that you have a trademark, you can actually go ahead and do things like ask for legally identifiable information of the person that's selling this counterfeit stuff, which you couldn't do before. So you could hit them with, a lawsuit, or you can write a letter from your attorney and get all the information from them and legally to be able to write those claims. Even more incredible is with Brand Registry 2.0, you can make claims to Amazon, and in a time where they used to take, a couple days, they'll address your issue or at least respond to you within 4 hours, and that's pretty incredible. The final thing that's really amazing with Brand Registry 2.0 is also that you can whitelist sellers. So let's say you want to go the route of wholesaling your product, you can actually write a letter of authorization to some wholesaler or distributor, and they are authorized, and they have to send that authorized claim to Amazon for verification before being able to sell your product. So that's pretty amazing. Without Brand Registry 2.0, that's not possible. So you definitely want this protection because it'll allow you to protect your brand, protect your products, and those are really important things. All right, so that's it for this lesson, guys. If you have questions, leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, again, make moves, and I'll see you in the next video.